Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. And this morning, I'm excited. We're going to be joined by Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. That's coming up in a little bit. Obviously, the big news of the day, well, arguably the big news of the day, either the debate between DeSantis and Haley or Chris Christie dropping out of the race. Some of you may have said, oh, he was still in the race. Yes, he was. And it's good to see when he was caught in a hot mic. Yes, you got to be careful about those things. Caught in a hot mic. It's good to see that Chris Christie is as arrogant off the camera as he is on the camera. It's confirming our suspicion. Chris Christie drops out of the 2024 race and then predicts Nikki Haley, quote, going to get smoked on the hot mic. But it's interesting. Here's a guy who really never did anything in the polls. Yes, the media loved him, especially at first, because he was attacking former President Trump, and they loved to get those sound bites from him. And he found a very good niche of, hey, I could be a future MSNBC host. What do you think? Or I could be a future CNN talking head. That's what it seemed to me he was going for. But then he starts talking about how he was actually doing, or maybe getting more bang for his buck when it came to advertisements. She spent, meaning Haley, $68 million so far just on TV. This is on a hot mic, so this was not meant to be heard. And DeSantis has spent $59 million, and we've spent $12. Who's punching above their weight, and who's getting a return on their investment? Yeah. Isn't this just moments before he conceded and dropped out? So no, I don't really think you're getting a better return on your investment unless you're talking about your potential future job at an MSNBC or CNN. I don't know. And then he talks about Nikki Haley saying, and she's going to get smoked. And you and I both know it. She's not up to this. And then DeSantis called me petrified that I would, meaning drop out of the race. And then another person chiming in, he's probably getting out after Iowa. That seems to be what, and it came out on The Hill, I believe it was, where, one of these anonymous sources saying it's all over for DeSantis. If he doesn't have a great showing in Iowa, he's going to drop out. Is that a tactic by some type of competitor? What I mean by that is it starts with the idea in your mind that, well, DeSantis probably isn't going to do that good in Iowa, apparently. And then if he's going to drop out, why would I, as an Iowan, put my vote behind him? So was it nefarious? Was it a couple of anonymous sources? I mean, I'm not much on trusting anonymous sources any longer, specifically during, we learned how they could be misused a lot during the Trump administration. So the question is, was that a plant by DeSantis' opposition? That's not to say that I feel one way or the other that DeSantis is going to have a great showing or not a great showing. You've heard me say this a couple times on the program already. Nikki Haley will, unless she really bombs, she will be the clear winner in Iowa. Lived above expectations, those type of things. If she even gets 1 point higher than maybe suspected. DeSantis will probably try to say he's a loser unless he has a really good showing. And Trump, anything short of 70, 80% of the vote, they'll say that he was the big loser of the night. This is pretty easy to write. DeSantis, though, what's interesting is how does that go on in the future? Because DeSantis, if he has a good showing, which would make sense, Iowa voters are more in line with him and maybe more in line with Trump. Though maybe if they don't like Trump for whatever reason, they go to DeSantis more so than Nikki Haley. So this is where it gets really interesting. So if the media keeps pushing to you and to others, wow, Nikki Haley outperformed last night. She did great in Iowa. Will that convince the next state's voters that, yeah, because she's been campaigning hard in New Hampshire, which is a smart campaign move. Then after that, will they start to push this idea of momentum? Something to watch. So Chris Christie, anyway, that was a long tangent. Just to mention that someone that we forgot was in the race dropped out of the race. We've got to take our first break. Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard is going to join us in just a little bit. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. So who won the debate last night? I would love to hear from you. You see the number on the bottom of your screen. Who was the winner, Nikki Haley or DeSantis? Now, many of the talking heads, many of the pundits are saying Nikki Haley. I know Drudge Report poll, which is not scientific in any way, shape, or form, they had Nikki Haley winning, people that go to Drudge Report. 4 of the 5 veteran political watchers that they ask on the New York Post had Nikki Haley winning, saying she was sharp, informed, and compelling throughout the night. What was interesting, this person said, what really got her over the edge for me was using the website DeSantisLies.com a lot. Kept mentioning this website that they had created, DeSantisLies.com, admitting in here that, probably very few people actually go to the website, but it really worked. It is stuck in people's mind. But then, on the other side of the coin, according to CNN, that was one of the things that drew one of their pundits away, saying it was beneath her, was not presidential. And it goes to show you the horse race that is politics. Rob Ryan, a Republican consultant, said DeSantis started off too hot by saying in his open statement that Haley was running to pursue her donors' issues. Yeah, there seems to be something here where the media really wants, and I'm not criticizing these people specifically, but really wants to see Nikki Haley succeed. And obviously the media wouldn't like DeSantis because DeSantis is very similar to Trump. But his failure to display some level of humor or charm when going on the attack and is repeatedly calling Haley a liar will remind many women of their ex-husband. Haley came off strong and informed. She stood her ground and pushed back on DeSantis' attacks. She was smart to focus more on her accomplishments. Interesting take on that, reminding people of their ex-husbands. I don't know. I know there's another thing, depending on how she continues to do in the race, that's been a common refrain in the media, which is sexist type attacks on her or gender-based attacks. Now, according to CNN, who held the debate and who thought over and over again, article after article, said that this is going to be the game changer. That's how full of themselves that they are. Well, they have their takeaways from the debate saying Trump is skating again. Yes, he made a political decision not to be in the debate. And I think history so far has proven that to be the correct choice. The race to be the toughest on stage, them both tough talking. Haley's brutal takedown of DeSantis' campaign. 2 views on foreign policy. You get the idea. It's 9 pages of what CNN thinks was such a historic moment. Did you watch? Here's another question. Did you watch the debate? I know there was the counter programming with former President Trump giving a town hall at Fox News. So which did you watch? Which do you think was more important to the overall discussion when it comes to November, or at least through the primaries? They also had some talking heads. Maybe we'll have an opportunity to get to it some more, but I'm hoping that we can spend as much time with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard as possible. So let me take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll be right back. Our beautiful view of Market Street here in Corning. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you for joining us. Here's a comment from a viewer. You see the number on the bottom of your screen. Feel free to reach out at any time. Who do you think won last night? When you have the pot calling the kettle black, the Democrat base refuses to even acknowledge all the lies the media implements, but doesn't ever get held accountable for. Yes, I mean, really, Democrats, I would say, have used it to their advantage time and time again. If candidates decide to be a part of a gotcha moment, they only have themselves to blame. And that's one of the fears. That's a very good point. That's one of the fears, specifically, well, with CNN and elsewhere, but why do Republican candidates go on to outlets that obviously do not want to see them win, are not friendly to them? I've never understood that. The RNC normally plays along and allows it, and it's very confusing. You've seen it time and time again with the moderators and who they choose. So really, to that viewer's point, another reason for Trump not to be involved in the debates is because it's not friendly territory, and it's not, you could say, well, it doesn't have to be friendly. It's got to be tough questions. Yeah, tough questions is one thing, but well, we're talking about just complete fairness. If you imagine Trump being on that stage last night, what those questions would have looked like? Do you think they would have been the same sort of questions that Haley and DeSantis received? Also, I'm curious because there's a lot here praising Nikki Haley's performance last night, but just in general, we see the downplaying of DeSantis, constantly being told that he stands no chance, yet Haley does. It's very confusing in a way. Do you think this is all kind of a plan by the establishment Republican? I've said it time and time again. I don't want to sound like a broken record. It just is so reminiscent of the only way we can win is Jeb Bush. The only way we can win is Mitt Romney. The only way we can win is John McCain. You go back throughout how many times we can say that. And these pundits who get it wrong so very often continue to be very confident, like Chris Christie in that hot mic. Look at how confident he is in his kind of arrogance, and for someone that does not typically get it right. And I remember, who was it that said back at the time that the only way Trump, everybody's got the only way. The only way Trump could win, this was last go around, or back in against Hillary, that it was if he picks Chris Christie. I never thought Chris Christie to be someone that people found likable necessarily. And I'm not saying this from a political standpoint. I just don't understand the new push. Is it because he's become a talking head that so frequently badmouths Republicans and specifically Trump that's what's increased his popularity? It's all very kind of confusing to me. Now, according to CNN, S.E. Cupp, full disclosure, I mentioned her in the past. I had her on my radio show at one time. She went to Ithaca. She said Nikki Haley played the right strategy with independents. And you say, well, with independents, who cares? I found out, I did some research, in Iowa, independents can't vote in the primary unless they switch their party, which they're allowed to do the day of. So you could go in to vote in Iowa as an independent and say, you know what, never mind, I'm a Republican. Good. You're now a Republican and you can vote. Interesting. It's interesting as you learn more about the difference in each state. But we've got to take a break because the sheriff is coming in now, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. Joining us in the studio this morning, we have Sheriff Jim Allard. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Frank. It's a beautiful day in Steuben County.
It always is. It always is. We got so much to talk about. Can you give us an update? Because last time you were on, you had some new information about the current court case.
Yes, we had a hearing actually a week ago today.
Okay.
The first hearing we had where we petitioned to be able to get more information about what was done in the executive session to lead the legislature to the vote that they made. We have received information that untruthful things were said and that very possible false things were said to lead the legislators to that vote. Obviously, because it's all an executive session, there's no minutes or notes or any recollection that we can recover on that, unless we can depose a legislator and find out exactly what was said. So that's what the hearing was for, and the judge is considering that and will issue his justice is considering that and will issue his determination in writing, and then we'll know whether or not we can get that information.
Is there a time frame on that?
No.
Okay, so it's just up to the judge. But that's obviously one of the complaints, and I know we've talked about it before, was how secretive it was to the public. As someone that's voted in, that there should be that conversation in public, or at least have a public forum. So that's one of the biggest red flags when people talk about these executive sessions.
Right.
There's no real record.
Well, and especially with this situation, the initial committee, it was never on a committee agenda.
Right.
And the initial vote was entirely an executive session with no minutes as to the deliberation. The second committee one, it was not on an agenda. And again, the vote and the discussion was in executive. They came out of executive for the vote, but it was never on a public agenda until the first time it went to the full legislature, and they tabled it.
So almost at the base level, it seems like there should be some housekeeping and maybe some corrections made, because that doesn't sound like it's above board or a proper protocol. I'll put it that way.
Well, we contacted the Committee on Open Government and sent them everything and said, "Is this according to Hoyle?"
Their heads must have exploded.
They're
a great group.
Their opinion was that it was almost a case study on how not to comply with the committee or with the public officers law. So, that's going to continue to be looked into, and I think a lot of that contributed to the change in leadership at the legislative level.
How exciting is that? I mean, the first time in Steuben County history we have a female chair of the legislature.
Well, in Legislator Fitzpatrick, Chair Fitzpatrick now, she is a very conscientious legislator. She does an excellent job. I was very happy to see her get voted in, because I think she's going to right the ship.
Yes.
I really do.
I do too, and I'm excited about it. She's actually going to be on the program, I believe, next week. We're in the works, because I'm looking forward to seeing her plans and her ideas, because obviously some things can change, and I think it's just a great move. It's always nice to have fresh blood, so to speak.
Yes, and the fact that it's in our 228-year history that it's the first time a female has been elected as chair, I think is it's historic for her, but holy cow, what have we been doing? I know.
It is pretty, when I saw that, because actually the only place that I heard it was in, and I look forward to the newsletter every month. That's the first time I had thought of it that way, and the first time I'd heard it. So I was glad that you highlighted it, and I'm hoping it got some coverage, because it is historic, and she should be celebrated for this great accomplishment.
Absolutely. And your own local legislator?
Yes. Vice Chair James Cool. Yep. I talked to him just the other day at the town board meeting, and he's our vice. So there's a lot of changes at the legislature.
Yes, and welcome change.
Yes,
I think it was time for a change.
Yes, I agree. Now, the question I've been dying to ask, because this is in the newsletter, are you good at making pizza?
I think so.
We're the employees. So, we're talking about Employee Appreciation Day, where you made pizzas.
48 pizzas that day. Captain Mills, Justin Mills, he's the pizza maker.
Oh, okay.
I'm just the helper. I put everything on, and he's the one that bakes it. Yeah. And he's got the outdoor stone thing. Then it goes, he's no joke with it.
Wow.
And he did a phenomenal job, and I love to being able to do that for the employees.
I thought it was a great idea, because when you think pizza party, you don't think about someone making the pizza.
Right.
You think about. So I was zooming in on the pictures to see how the pizza looked. It looked good.
It came out good. I liked it. I'll tell you, the garlic one was the big hit.
Oh, really?
I got a tub of the garlic butter when we did it, and put that on as a base instead.
Yeah.
Holy moly, people were digging that.
So that's once a quarter you do that?
Yeah. Well, we do different ones. We've done a pancake breakfast for them. We've done sausage, peppers, and onion lunch for them with salads. We do pizza. We try to rotate it around so that we can catch all the employees.
Oh, that's a great idea. I guess that's the first time it came on my radar, but I was impressed. 48 pizzas is nothing. So maybe in the future you could get a job at the pizza shop down the street.
Actually, when Rico started, I worked
Did
there.
you really?
I did.
Oh, so you're a pro at it.
1985.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Oh, that's funny. On that note, let's take a short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. Stay with us. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We have the sheriff in the studio. So what did you think about the state of the state from Governor Hochul? Do you think anything's going to come from it when it comes to actual reform?
No.
Yeah, okay. Okay, we can move on then, because I thought the same thing. It just seems like more of the same.
It does. And, obviously the governor has a balancing act to keep her base as her base. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be what's driven public policy for her. Mm-hmm. It's depressing and unfortunate, because she is an upstate person.
I know.
And
she touts that.
Yeah, and her her family is in law enforcement. Mm-hmm. You would hope that would hold some sway for her, but
you would think Thanksgiving dinner would be awkward at least.
Yeah, I'm just hopeful that the radical changes slow down. Mm-hmm. I think that would be an improvement.
Isn't that the sad thing? When I see State of the State, or whenever I see that they're in session, it's just, let's make sure this isn't as bad as it could be. We know it's going to be bad. We just don't want it to be this bad.
How bad is it going to be? And there's a lot of legislation that she did not sign that would have been very, very harmful, so I'm thankful for that.
Right.
But, you gotta find gratitude where you can, I guess.
Isn't that sad? I look at some of them, and Phil Palmisano released a nice kind of play-by-play of it, and he tries, and we all do at the beginning. Well, there are some little things, that's how it starts. I think
some hope.
I know.
Some hope.
The New York Post said it was gives us a little hope, 1.5 stars. I thought that's about perfect. But I think it's interesting that she's going after shoplifting, which I understand because it's costing businesses. I mean, people.
Well, and it's not just shoplifting; it's the smash and grabs.
I know.
It's the gangs of people doing the smash and grabs in the urban centers. That's what has gotten the attention again of her base.
Exactly.
So that's a big deal. We've seen an increase in shoplifting because there's no consequence.
Well, that's the point. So if you can put together as many task forces as you want, but I would think at the end of the day, the task force could save you a lot of money by saying they're not going to get in trouble. Here's the final decision.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to get arraigned and released, or they're going to get a Paris ticket.
I know. I mean, I remember we've talked about it on the show, and there's a piece I read where you could, this was a while ago, that you could go into court and say, after getting arrested for shoplifting, saying, I'm going to, as soon as I leave here, go shoplift a suit for my next court date, and there's nothing they can do.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean,
the judge can't say you're a danger to society.
Exactly.
And put you in jail or put bail on you because they're not allowed. The judge's hands are tied even worse than ours.
Oh, yeah. And then they wonder why we're pessimistic when we see the state of the state.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I think we all want to go in there and hope for the best. It's our state. Mm-hmm. We want what's best for the state.
Yes. We hope that people make sound policy decisions.
Right.
People in leadership make sound policy decisions that increase our public safety.
Yeah. And
that's
do you think,
always the hope.
I guess what scares me about her, whenever she talks about public safety, I don't feel like it comes from good faith. It comes from the political side of it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I mean, look at her bail reform, which was nothing.
Right.
But she could go out and have press conferences and say, look how much I'm doing.
It's policy by press release.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Have we seen an uptick in shoplifting in our area?
Continually slow uptick. Yeah. I don't think we've seen the drastic
like
smash and grabs like they see in the urban settings, but we continue to see an increase in crime overall. Mm-hmm. Again, if there's no consequence to bad acts are going to increase.
But then you look at it too. I know there was reasons behind it, but she vetoed the task force last year, and now she acts as if almost now I'm doing the right thing. Well, that's a lot of shoplifting can happen in a year.
It has.
Yes, it has. I just feel bad because we always talk about the business climate in the state. And what business would come, especially to urban areas, would come when they know that, I mean, like she even admitted in her speech, that you're locking up baby formula. And I mean, and even locally around here, I mean, trying to buy a razor, I got to have my social security number and my passport.
Yep. Razor or anything that can be made into methamphetamine.
Well, yes. But it's wild to think that people are just are doing that. But again, there's no consequences. Mm-hmm. And then you look at another, which was a failed policy here in New York that now we're trying to fix, I guess, with sticker stores.
Yeah. So the whole cannabis management has not worked out well.
And whenever you think about legalizing it and all that, I feel bad for these farmers that decided to switch over, and then now they haven't been able. I mean,
they can't sell their crop.
They can't. Yeah, they said basically we're going broke based on the promises of Hochul and Albany.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it always seems like the farmers get the worst of it. But do you think there'll be anything when it comes to like local enforcement of sticker stores?
So that's something that I've asked the Office of Cannabis Management. I said, how can I help?
Yeah.
What can we do?
Yeah.
I even told them on a Zoom meeting, I said, I'll FaceTime as I walk in the store, right to you. What
in
do you
uniform.
need me to do? Yeah. What do you need me to do to be able to assist you in your enforcement efforts? And it was, we'll get back to you, and only we can enforce it.
And I'm not going to have you say this, but it seems to me a lot of it's just public relations too. It was more about having the cameras there than it was about.
Well, yeah, obviously with everything we see from the governor's office and is more about policy by press release rather than actual getting people in a room that are experts in the field and getting their recommendations and making sound policy based on that. What a crazy thought.
How could we have screwed this up so bad, though?
It's ridiculous. Like I say, I saw the one out here in Riverside with a sign that says free weed.
I know. And what are we doing?
And it's not. And the other thing with that is that this marijuana that's out there, cannabis, has not been tested.
No.
It's not been verified.
It's not state run or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't know what's mixed in, and we continue to see I was talking with one of our narcotics investigators yesterday, and he said, well, the big thing we're seeing now is the crystal meth from down south with fentanyl mixed in, so that the high lasts a little bit longer and the crash isn't as severe. But we're seeing a major increase of overdoses because if that dusting of fentanyl is just a bit much, wow, you're probably not going to wake up.
I know I've said this before, and I'm not saying it lightly, but every time you're on the program, there's a new way they're doing drugs. Isn't it remarkable?
Well, again, you know, folks that are in substance use disorder are going to do whatever they can to satisfy that need, and people that make money off that are willing to sacrifice any number in order to make a profit.
Yeah. Do you think, looking back at the state of the state, I know she talked about mental health and addictions, do you think we'll see hopefully a push in that direction?
Well, what was it?
Because you guys have done a lot behind the scenes in the sheriff's office.
We have been doing a lot in the jail in working with, obviously, Steuben County Mental Health.
Right.
We have crisis intervention trained deputies that will go out with the mobile crisis unit and respond. But, you know, we need beds.
Yeah.
And we need secure facilities for folks. You look at the psych center, I think it's down to, 9 beds now? 7 beds, something like that. Yeah. And there's none in this half of the state. We used to have mental health treatment at St. James and Hornell. That's closed. We used to have it at Soldiers and Sailors and Penn, that's closed. And there's just, other than Olean or Rochester or Arnott, there's no BSU available to take folks that are in need. So they go to the ER, they get observed for 72 hours or less and kicked out, and they end up, what happens is they commit crimes and they end up in our jail. And then we're treating them there the best we can, but our mental health folks are trying to keep them alive.
Of course.
They're not necessarily having time to treat the underlying problem.
And what's the answer when it comes to the state level? Because, I mean, let's face it, Albany's already pretty much bled us dry when it comes to money.
Right.
So now we're playing catch up with no money. I mean, that's, I guess, the most frustrating part. So instead of focusing on how much money she spent here and, you know, the tax breaks for Hollywood and all that, can't we focus on maybe something that directly affects our community?
Yeah, well, there needs to be a huge overhaul on that state budget. You know that.
Yeah, I know.
The way it's done, I mean, they hide legislation in it and misuse it that way. But also, you know, every time there's a press release, there's $1 million going to this group or to that group or to that group, instead of saying, hey, let's get back to our core. Public safety is our core. Mental health is our core. Let's establish some core issues that we need to focus on and fund and make New York safer so people will come here rather than leave. I just talked to my wife and I were walking Market Street a couple nights ago, ran into a guy I've known forever. And he said, soon as I'm retiring in the summer, and as soon as I retire, I'm leaving this state.
I know.
I can't get away fast enough. And this is a person whose family's been here for
over
100 years.
I know. There's been so many examples of people calling the show, and I know there was a poll, this came out a while ago when we first started the program, but it's not that people are leaving necessarily even right now, though we see the numbers they are, but there's a lot of people that have that 5-year plan in their head.
Yes.
And I started thinking about that. I never really thought about that question, but how many people do you know, like that gentleman who said, you know what, as soon as I'm retired or as soon as the kids move out or soon whatever, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So it's only going to get worse.
It is, and it's going to continue to bleed upstate dry.
Yeah.
And we're going to, I feel like, you know, part of the plan is to make us downstate's playground.
It feels it, and that's why, again, Hochul discussed the mass exodus, but nothing serious is being done because you're not taking public safety serious, and that is definitely a part. It's bad enough you're paying the taxes, you are the lack of freedom, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then you don't feel safe at night.
Correct.
What's the straw that breaks the camel's back? You know?
Well, I think you're seeing it.
Yeah,
I think it's already broke.
Yeah, I agree. 101,000 people last year.
You look at Steuben County's population's down almost 10% from 10 years ago.
Yeah, I know, but we never learn, and you don't have to say this, but you can if you want. This is what happens when you have a supermajority.
Yes.
I mean, when you have Democrats completely running everything and continuing to make the same choices, what do we expect?
Completely unchecked.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's, one would hope that at some point in time the Senate would be by region rather than by population,
right?
As in the national government.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that would make a tremendous difference in what comes out of Albany.
I agree. We got to take another short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We are being joined by the sheriff this morning. We've been talking about state of the state, but before that, 2 comments from viewers. How about this one? Okay. Good morning. I love it when Jim is on. It's nice your wife wrote it. The other one we received the other day.
If it was my mother-in-law, we'd have something going on.
I won't check the other page. But we received this yesterday, and I think it's a fair question. Has anyone ever thought to prosecute the parents along with those individuals who commit these heinous crimes against innocent people in schools, houses of worship, and public places?
I think you're seeing more of that, especially with the school shooters, where it's obviously juveniles involved. You just saw it with the 6-year-old that brought the pistol to school. Yeah. The parents were prosecuted, and I think you'll continue to see that. Again, it doesn't wipe out the tragedy, but at least it's a step towards justice.
Right. Well, even when you see, and I know we talked about it last time, but in the city it's a big deal where these young people are, it's basically like Charles Dickens type stuff, pickpocketing and breaking in and when the people threaten to call the police, they go, they're not going to do anything.
Correct.
Could you go?
They're juveniles.
But you could ask the question, why not go after the parents? But the state's not going to do that. I mean, the states are going back to coddling. Yeah, not this state. No. So we can think it's a good idea, which I think it is. Doesn't mean it's going to be done.
Correct.
Another comment we got, in my opinion, the reason the New York State screwed up so bad with cannabis is because they didn't do their homework and educate themselves on other states and how they did it. The arrogance of our leaders thinking they could do it better on their own made the whole thing fall apart. That's true.
It is true. You look at Massachusetts, they had their infrastructure in place when they rolled it out.
Yeah.
And it rolled out pretty seamlessly.
Yeah.
We rolled it out and then said, we need an infrastructure.
Yeah.
Maybe we should create one. But hey, you take care of that, will you?
Well, it goes back to what New York State always does, where they want to be the first at everything, but it seems like California or somebody will beat us, so then they knee-jerk and overreact, and then they have what has been nothing but a mess from the beginning. Even people that supported marijuana, I've talked to them where they said, I've made a mistake.
Yeah.
Because, and it's anecdotal, but I made a mistake because we should have waited and been patient to finally get the regulations instead of have these places pop up everywhere.
And look at the millions they've already spent on the Office of Cannabis Management.
Yes.
Millions and millions. And how much tax revenue have they received?
Yeah.
Virtually zero.
Yeah.
It's frustrating because if you look back over bail reform, raise the age, everything across the board that they've implemented, the HALT Act, the Clean Slate Act, which is coming, there has been no input from industry professionals on how to best manage that before it's been enacted.
Yeah.
And typically it's left up to the counties to figure out.
What a mess. Well, thank you for everybody sending in comments. So I want to take a look back at last year and maybe look ahead to this year. But first, let's start on a positive note because not all of this has been positive. I don't know if you can.
Never is.
Never is. But you guys have an award coming up, and rightfully so, for the work you've done with your EMT.
Yes. Next Tuesday, actually, we're getting awarded in Albany by the New York State Sheriff's Association. It's called the Innovative Program Award. We're the only county in the state that has a basic life support system in place through the sheriff's office, and we're being recognized for that in a luncheon. And I'm excited about it. Again, we got into it not for awards, but to save lives, and we've saved over 50 lives so far, wonderful. Documented by the University of Rochester Medical System.
That's great.
It's I like it on a couple of levels. One, as you know, in a lot of places in our county, ambulances are 10, 20, 30, 40, 60 minutes out. So our goal was to keep folks alive till the ambulance can arrive.
Right.
But also it's good for the deputies. When you save a life, that's a good feeling.
I'm sure it is.
It's a very good feeling. And so that it helps on the wellness end of things, too.
Well, that's great. Albany finally recognizing. No, I shouldn't say that.
It's the Sheriff's Association.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Different part of Albany. Very different part.
It's a thoughtful part.
And also, and I think this is important, I know we talk about it, unfortunately, too often with the scourge of fentanyl, but you had a nice roundtable with Congressman Langworthy, 2 weeks ago? Or
yes, the 28th, I think it was.
Yeah. Do you think it was helpful for everyone?
I really do.
Yeah.
There was a really good discussion, and we made sure we invited folks that had competing views, so that it would be a discussion from all perspectives. Brandon Buter was there, who works for.
He's been on the show. He does a great job.
And he does, and he's a peer advocate, and he's a person who is in recovery and understands this problem better than I ever will.
Yes.
And he voiced his concerns, and then obviously The Federal HALT Act was the underlying principle of this roundtable for Congressman Langworthy, and he brought the federal perspective, and we talked about how can we work together, federal, state, and local, to address this, all hands on deck, because too many people are dying from it. And I thought it was very productive. I'm glad that the congressman did it.
Yes.
And I was happy to be part of it.
Well, I think it's good to have these conversations, because we can't just keep feeling bad for ourselves. I mean, it's really what it feels like. We've got to start doing something about this, because fentanyl, unfortunately, is not getting any better.
No, and as I was telling you on break, we're finding right now that it's being mixed in with a lot of different things that are out there on the street, and it's really prevalent.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had it mixed with marijuana.
That is unbelievable.
So,
and I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's conversations like this that need to be had to get to the bottom of it.
Yep.
What do you think compared to last year, and what do you hope to see next year when it comes to fentanyl? Did we have a really bad year last year?
We continue to our overdoses continue to increase.
So it's just always increasing.
And we keep trying to get the message out, because I'm a big believer that it's the three-tiered stool that works. It's the education, the enforcement, and the treatment all together, working simultaneously, is what gets us over the hump, if we can get there.
Right.
And so the more education we can do for folks that, hey, this whatever you buy may not be what you think it is.
Do they have fentanyl test kits now? Did I read?
Yeah. Yes, we do. Yeah. Yep. And actually, public health has them where there's strips where you can test. But again, if you think something's fentanyl,
why would you?
Don't touch it.
Don't get yourself into that scenario where you have to
don't breathe it in. Stay away from it. Call police.
It's things like that. It's the same with what's it called? I'm drawing a blank on it. But when someone does have an overdose, the
Narcan.
Narcan. Thank you. The first time I saw that in public as a free take one, boy, that's an eye-opening experience.
It is.
Jeez.
Yeah, and that's part of the state's initiative, is to get Narcan out to folks that are using.
Yeah.
Through Oasis, and wherever you are on that political end of things, it does keep people alive to try again.
Right. So looking back at last year, some things you're happy with, some things you're not happy with. Yeah.
I'm always happy.
Yeah, I know that's true. Who am I asking? But it was a good year.
It was a very good year, and again, even with the troubles that I've gone through,
the hiccups,
the legislature, there's always lessons to be learned.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm a big believer in post-incident critique and self-evaluation. That's how we get better at what we do. So for me, it was a definite learning experience.
Yeah.
Painful one, but definite. And, moving on, I'll apply those lessons. But it's funny, the last 2 days I've been teaching a supervisor course to new supervisors in the region. And, I talk a lot about leadership and connecting the dots, looking back. We never know where we're going to end up. And then when we look back, we see all the dots that connected that path.
Sure.
But we got to have faith that those dots are going to appear.
Yeah, well, that's true.
And I'm a big believer in that. So I spent a lot of time in the last 2 days reflecting and talking about things in my career that have led me to here without ever foreseeing ever being the sheriff. Never in my career.
Isn't that fun?
And so it's interesting. I think things happen for a reason.
Of course.
And sometimes it takes a little while for us to figure it out.
Yes, sure does. On that note, we'll take another break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. There's our beautiful view of Market Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. We're being joined by the sheriff this morning. So looking ahead to New Year's, what are maybe your goals, your New Year's resolutions, so to speak?
Well, I think continuing to move forward with trying to maintain consistent service and increasing our professional response across the board. I'm very, very excited. We promoted a new lieutenant in charge of investigations, Chris Kennedy, and he's doing a phenomenal job. And Chris he's a local guy, but he was out west for 5 years. You see the hotshot firefighters. He did that for 5 years, and he was a team leader. And he brings that experience with him, and he's a very intelligent young man that has already been doing good things in his role as a lieutenant there. So
that's great.
I see a continued realignment of that group and a continued emphasis on evidence recovery and digital evidence. We had, I think, over 16 burglaries solved last year just on DNA evidence that we collected.
Wow.
So, compared to 10 years ago when we didn't collect any,
Right.
that's a significant difference. And we continue doing that.
Well, I think that's what's so important about this newsletter you put together, because you don't realize how many classes and things that you guys are taking throughout the year that, if we're not paying attention, we don't know behind the scenes, behind the curtain. Boy, you guys are busy. And then not to mention last month, it was just about any kind of crime that could be committed. You guys caught somebody. This was things I never even heard of before.
Yeah, it was every month gets busier and busier.
Yeah.
And, luckily, I'm a big believer that you attain professionalism through training.
Right.
And so we try to make sure that all of our folks have the tools necessary to meet the needs of their position.
Yeah.
We sent Lieutenant Harrison as lieutenant in the jail, and Lieutenant Logsdon is kind of in charge of the patrol division.
Okay.
We've sent them to the FBI. It's a brand new course that the FBI National Academy has put on.
Yeah.
It's a 3-week course over 3 months just to teach executive leadership principles.
Wow.
Obviously, that's not happened here before.
Right.
So we firmly believe that that's important to do. I'm a big believer, if you don't train somebody to take your job, you haven't done your job.
Right.
So we continue to make sure that our people in leadership positions get the training they need, but also the deputies on the street get the training they need in order to continue to function at a high level.
So right now the newsletter is 2 pages. When's it going to hit 3? Because it's it's at the end, and that's only with 2 pictures that go around.
I had to shrink the picture.
To
keep it to 2. I
know.
try to keep it to 2.
That's why I had to zoom in on the pizza.
Yeah.
You shrunk it too much. So I know this has been, since you've been on the program, and we're going on almost a year now, we talked with not just you, everybody, staffing, recruiting, and retention. What's it look like right now, and what do you see in the new year?
So right now we're 4 deputies down on the road patrol side. We're 14 full-time correction officers down.
Wow.
On that side of the house. And that is very troubling because our correction officers do such a phenomenal job, and they're working tons of overtime every week, and they're getting burned out. So I think you saw the big push I did on Facebook to get folks to apply. We did get some responses.
Oh, good.
So in another month or 2, I'm going to do that again and continue to push that. But it is a very rewarding job, but it's not an easy job.
No.
And I think people walk into it thinking that it will be like babysitting, and it isn't.
But people have got to realize too, when you say there's 14, you're 14 down on corrections officer, it's not like they can just say, well, we're not going to go to prison today.
Right.
We'll close up prison or jail.
Right. Yeah.
We're going to close up, and then it doesn't work like that.
No.
So if the 14 are missing, the others have to make up for that 14.
Correct.
So they must just be so burnt out.
Yeah, they're getting pounded hard.
Man. So how can someone find out more if they're interested?
They can obviously go to our sheriff's app. They can go to our website. They can contact the jail at 607-622-3905. That's the jail secretary's number.
Okay.
And get an application. Come on in. You can contact Steuben County personnel and get an application there. If you're over 18, you have a valid license, and you're a high school graduate or have your GED, you can apply.
I was reading, so this isn't just here, obviously, because we talked with Schramm about it in Chemung. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
But I read, and this could be the location, though, so don't get me wrong, but in San Francisco, the starting pay to be a police officer, $102,000, and they still can't get people to do it.
I believe that.
That's San Francisco,
look at
though.
Ithaca.
Yeah, well, yeah.
They're offering
Mini San Francisco.
Speaking of San Francisco, look at Ithaca, but they're offering a 3-year, I think it's a 3-year tiered bonus.
Wow.
To come. Elmira's offering a bonus. Ontario County offered a bonus. A lot of places around are having to do that. And then, I talked to my partners up in the Monroe County area. Monroe, in their budget, they added 40 new deputies. So they're sucking in from all the surrounding areas.
Yeah.
And those folks have to backfill, which sucks in from their surround. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's and they told 2 friends kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, we are out of time, but we can't end this without big birthday wishes.
Yes.
The 2 canines?
Yes. Trip and Twiggy both had birthdays this past month.
I just remember talking about that as a year.
Trip the Bloodhound turned a year, and he's already certified.
Wow, that's great.
In both tracking and what is it? He's certified in tracking by the state, and we're getting his national tracking certification. And Twiggy is narcotics, patrol, and tracking.
Okay.
And he's certified, and he just had a birthday too.
Well, there. Send my birthday wishes to them. Before we go, and I am running late, but we got this question: do they have part-time corrections officers?
Yes,
There you go.
we do.
There you
Both competitive and non-competitive.
Okay.
So if you're not a test taker, we still have those.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for giving us so much time this morning. Let's do it again soon.
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thanks for getting the word out, Frank.
Of course.
It's important what you do.
Of course. All right. We'll be back tomorrow morning starting at 7 with Frankly Speaking.